All right, so you can see I actually moved in the left side of the face a tiny bit just to make sure there's even less of it when I was comparing it to the actual reference picture. You might need to make an adjustment too, or you can keep it if it looks okay. So right now I'm working on a simple statement with the shading. I'm just looking where are the shadow shapes, and I'm filling them in with kind of a medium fill. I'm going to go back in and darken some areas. So I'm only looking for the darkest areas really right now. So along the cheekbone there. Wrapping it around the jaw, just doing little shading there. Articulating that nostril. There is a little bit of a cast shadow underneath the nose, and he does have a mustache, that's true, and the mustache is actually lending some value to his upper lip, but there's a cast shadow there as well. Just like there's a cast shadow right underneath the lower lip there. Might as well go ahead and give a little bit of tone to the iris. You don't need to worry so much about the pupil or the highlight right now. We're just giving a light tone. Upper lip is in shadow, so we're getting that too. And you might as well just go ahead and erase out your guidelines. You don't need those anymore. And he has a little bit of a pocket underneath his eye there. You're going to suggest that. It'll be darker on the sides, kind of lighter towards that center of that pocket. Going back to the chin. Getting a little bit of shading there. There's not a whole lot, but there's a little bit there. And when you look at this reference photo, you need to make sure you know where the light's shining from and where it's hitting his face. So when I look at it, it's shining a little bit towards the center, but it's coming definitely from the right-hand side. His left-hand side of his face is in shadow. And when you look at your own reference picture, when you get to the project, you'll have to be very aware of where that light source is coming from. You can go ahead and give the eyebrows a fill as well. And again, a fill or a tone to them is a shade that is meant to be shaded on top of a little bit later. It's just to help us to define where the shadow shapes are going and where the darkest values are. You can see I did get the cast shadow on the neck. There's a nice cast shadow there. There's also one right underneath the lobe of his ear. So make sure you get that shadow, that cast shadow there as well. Okay, so we're going in with as kind of a secondary shadow shape. So looking more towards the left-hand side of the face, it'll be his right. And you want to shade evenly, just like we practiced with the gradient exercise the other day. You're shading it in lightly, giving it a tone for now, but we're going to go back in and get some more information on those shadows. You don't want them to be flat, we want them to look 3D. And that shading kind of wraps around the chin there too. Definitely on that eye socket there. Light shading at the temple on the right hand side too. You want that forehead to look like it is a sphere, like a ball. Just getting some subtle shading in here. And you can see I'm going light. I'm not pressing really hard. You don't want it to look like the person is all red or that they're sunburned. So he does have a little bit of shading right below his ear along the jawline on the right-hand side. And right along the chin there. Trying to get that to soften, to become a gradient. That is a form shadow on the forehead. And it's also a form shadow on the left-hand side on the cheek. And below, like around the mouth area, left-hand side, form shadow. So form shadows have to be soft. Cast shadows, like in the eye, that can be a little bit sharp. The shadow below the nose, again, is a cast, so you can go sharp on there. Just moving the hairline over a little bit. It's actually scooting it in. He also has some kind of wrinkles because he's frowning, some frown lines right kind of in between the two eyebrows. You can see a little subtle shift of shading there to indicate that the eyebrows are kind of in a frowning position. And right along the side of the nose, you want to leave the bridge of the nose alone, and the kind of like the center of the nose right down the center. You want to leave that alone. We'll keep that up with some white. So again, subtlety, just like you were doing with the other model we were looking at. Just be soft. Do neat shading. If you look at his lips, the corners of his lips are darker than the center based off of the lighting, and it should be even darker on the left side than the right. The right lower lip on the right hand side is particularly catching the light. We'll go back in later to get that. So just finessing these shadows, trying to make them look a little bit more 3D. Compare the shadow on the left cheek to the same side, but closer down towards the mouth. It looks like towards the mouth, that shadow gets a little bit darker. So you always want to compare shadow shapes and how dark they are. You do need to get a little bit of shading on the ear. And I have not yet drawn facial hair, but we will be doing that too. Okay, so here it is with a little bit of facial hair. Just want to show you where I left off. I worked a little bit off camera. I got the iris and the pupil on that right-hand side. The left-hand side, the eye is a little bit more in shadow. I might try making that eye a little bit bigger. I'm not 100% satisfied with that. But the skin tone's looking good. You can see I'm still working a little bit on the mouth. We're going to go back to the hair in a little while. I did go and I think I darkened the hair right above the ear. It's pretty dark there, and at the opposite side at the temple. So we'll be working on hair texture and adding the white on Friday. Should be fun. Maybe we can finish this really fast and then we can start our project on Monday. Okay, cool.